Hey guys, Ian from SS Cars. Hello and good morning to you on a coolish morning in mid-March, and I have with me today, as I think I've already explained, the Mercedes S500 Coupe, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic from this angle. As you can see, the signature mark for Mercedes sports models is to have the badge in the center of the grille, which I think looks particularly impressive. I like the way that the front is styled. It's becoming the sort of signature for all the Mercedes cars now, but I think the new Mercedes looks, the new sort of signature of the new Mercedes sports models is absolutely fantastic. And you can see that there's a silver lip round the bottom of the car, and it adds a certain something to the car. Now this is the S500, produces 455 HP. It's a 5-litre V8 and it sounds tremendous under acceleration, but quiet and sophisticated when you're cruising on the motorway at 70. It's a really, really nice car to live with for a period of time. As you'll see in a second, it has 4 full seats, enough room for 2 adults in the back, and the basic chassis is based upon the S-Class saloon, which is widely acknowledged to be the best chassis available on a saloon luxury car on the market today. BMW 7 Series and obviously their coupes, that's the 6 Series, have never really got close to managing the ride and comfort that the Mercedes S-Classes offer, and this is effectively an S-Class. We like the looks of it, especially from the 3/4 here. This one has 19-inch rims rather than the 20-inch rims, but I really don't think that's a particularly big problem. I think the 19-inch makes the ride slightly more compliant. I had it up in London yesterday, and the journey up and down from London was really very comfortable indeed. If you're going to sit in traffic in a car and you don't have a Bentley, I would suggest one of these. A really, really nice car to own. What I thought we might do at this stage is do a cold start-up, actually, just let you hear the V8 burble when it fires into life. So bear with me and I'll sort that out. There's nothing quite like the burble from a V8. Just somehow the offbeat sound that resonates from the exhaust is just fantastic. It's one of the reasons American cars have sounded so good, is because the vast majority of them use V8s. It's great from the rear, the car as well. It's a really nicely styled car. I think there's such a move upmarket from the previous coupe, so we'll move it into a different position and we'll have a look at the engine and see some of the practical side of the car. Bear with me whilst I get in. It's a really nice day. And we're going on a trip today. We're actually going up to Porsche to have a look at a GT4, but more of that later. In the meantime, as you can see, we're in the car, and you should be able to see the sat navigation screen in front of you, which also doubles up as the computer system, management system, your Bluetooth interface and general media interface. But fantastic environment to drive from. So we just move her a little bit forward, and then we'll put her in position for being able to open the bonnet and the boot. Show you what it's like. It's a sort of a wheel-mounted gear shift, which is something that I haven't seen for a while, but I think quite a number of new cars seem to be putting the shift back up onto the wheel, into the wheel area. Okay, I've opened up the bonnet, as you can see, and it is a massive area, but as is always the case these days, they cover everything interesting up. But you can see the basic V8 block, and it's a large engine, not perhaps mounted as far back as we saw in the FF, and certainly at the Geneva show recently the Aston Martin DB11 had its V12 almost into the bulk area. So this is fairly well forward. I would say probably the massive weight is sort of midway between the wheels, so not really a front mid-engined, but even then you can see that it's probably mounted further back than it would have been in the past. So one big bonnet, nice and easy and nice and light, actually, probably made of composites, I suspect. So we come round to the driver's door, where we can operate the boot release. You're able to do that from the key as well. As you can see, you have the Mercedes key ring, a fairly simple affair, basically does exactly the same as all other key rings do. You've got the lock, the unlock and the boot release. I come round to the boot. You can see in the boot it's a decent size. I don't know whether or not it goes black. It's black on the screen, but hopefully you can see it's got a reasonable depth, and it's actually quite high as well. So you get more than one suitcase on top of each other. I say, 4 people could go away with luggage for a week, I would say. I'd say too much longer than that, and you're probably going to need washing facilities of some description. Completely automated, the boot. As you can see, there's a button there which closes it electrically, effectively. 2 huge great exhausts at the back, and in between what I'd call a fairly small diffuser. I'm not sure whether that actually provides much downforce or not. And no active aerodynamics on this car. But on the other hand, you've got to remember it's a cruiser. It's a GT. Now the list on this car is something like 96, 97. I think this one's about 120 with all the options. So it's usefully below a Bentley, and I'd say a Bentley GT, and I'd say it's equally as good on a day-to-day basis as the Bentley is in terms of living with. I think it's a very purposeful looking car. I really like it. And the other thing is that nobody really takes any notice of you. One of the things I like about Mercedes is, to an extent, they're anonymous, and if you do get comments, I think the comments tend to be quite positive. And I do really like the front end of the car. I think if you're on the motorway and that comes up behind you, you'll get out of the way. I've actually, funnily enough, you excuse the fact that the X3 is extremely dirty, but I've always liked the idea that the front end of the X3 always looked really purposeful, with the signature BMW kidneys on either side of the BMW motif. And I've always liked the front of BMWs, and I actually think, especially with the star in the middle of the grille, I think the Mercedes looks even better. I have to say, it's a car that when I picked up I wasn't sure how much I was going to enjoy, and having done quite a few miles, and we're due to go a couple hundred miles, 250 miles in it today, I'm really looking forward to it, which I think, you know, not had much experience of large Mercedes cars before, but if I was a businessman travelling up and down to London on a daily basis, this would be absolutely on my list, and probably fairly close to the top. As you can see, in typical fashion, Mercedes put all their seat and memory controls on the door, but it's quite intuitive and it's easy to get at. One of the things that you find, so for example with the X3, the seat movement controls are on the side of the seat, so you can't actually see what buttons you're pressing if you're driving. So if you want to adjust it slightly, you have to guess what you're touching, whereas the advantage of having it on the door, of course, is you can see what you're doing. And then the seat moves forward to gain access to the rear, and both the seats, the passenger seat and the driver's seat, are quite far back in this car, actually, because we're on Sunday we had my guys in the back, but other than that it's just been me, and today will be myself and my wife. But they're very comfortable, and if you get into the back, which I'll do, you get into the back and we pull the seat back. The seat is sculptured in a way that allows enough room for your knees, and I'm 6 feet, and you know, with a generous amount of space for me in the back, which I'd say I could have it quite a bit further forward, it's a comfortable place for 4 people. Maybe the FF, I think, perhaps had a little bit, the Ferrari FF had a little bit more room, but it's close, and I'd be very comfortable to go a long journey in this. And you've always got to be a little bit careful of comparing this to the Ferrari, because the Ferrari is in a completely different price bracket. I mean, I remember my Ferrari fully spec'd was £300,000. So I don't think it's fair to compare a car at list at 96 with a car that has a list of 230. I think the Ferrari is. Then you can see here that we have the full panoramic roof. It doesn't open, but it's really nice for the rear passengers especially. It gives a really nice airy feel. So it's not a claustrophobic car, even with the black leather, which is, you know, I spec the Ferrari in Crema, which was a lovely interior for a car, but then it didn't have an opening roof. So I thought, well, if you spec it all in black, it could be a little bit claustrophobic, especially for the rear passengers. And again, you have all the creature comforts in the back. You have separate air conditioning controls. The rear seats are heated, and a nice feature. If I just let the seat go forward and come out now, a really nice feature of the car is, again, if I take out the keys, put them back in the ignition, you'll note that if I push the windows down all the way, I don't know whether you can see this, but the doors are frameless. So basically, in the summer, you can have a complete open space from the front to the back, and I think that really gives it a great coupe feel to it. Almost convertible-ish, of course. The roof doesn't retract, but certainly a nice feel to it. And coming back in again, you can see that with the ignition on, all the controls are back on. I like the way they've gone for the circular vents on the dashboard, sort of a la Bentley again, but they really add a touch of class to the interior of the car, and it's very nice quality leather pretty much everywhere. A very impressive driving place. Okay guys, well I hope that gives you sort of a first instance and feel for the car. I think, you know, it's grown on me enormously, and I'm at a point now where, you know, I really, as a 4-door cruiser, it would be very high on my list when I come to think about what to have next. Okay guys, well, we're going to leave the house in about an hour's time, and we'll be heading up north to look at a GT4. So we'll catch up with you later. Thanks. Oh, make sure you subscribe.